and from one great storyteller to another, I would like to welcome our next speaker, Mr. Andrés Bermúdez Liévano, who is an investigative journalist at the Latin American Center for Investigative Journalism. So, Andrés, over the past years, you have been investigating irregularities and human rights problems in carbon credit projects operated by private actors in the Colombian Amazon. Could you briefly discuss to us your findings and the business and human rights challenges currently faced in this climate problem? And what do you think can companies do better to deal with the business and human rights problems detected in the carbon credit market? Over to you.
Thank you, Crisel. It's an honor to be here. I think few issues are at the intersection of climate, biodiversity, and environmental human rights defenders like carbon credit schemes, which, as you may know, were designed as climate finance solutions to curb deforestation in tropical countries and to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions by bringing much-needed funds from private companies that want to offset their fossil fuel consumption to local communities who protect the forests. And many people and many governments consider that this is a key solution to help solve the climate crisis. It is a win-win situation in theory. It should be. But ironically, the carbon credit market is not working as it should be. As investigative journalists at the Latin American Center for Investigative Journalism and the Pulitzer Center Rainforest Investigation Network and its allies, we've documented a number of irregularities in how these privately led projects are working, from Colombia and Brazil to the Democratic Republic of Congo. We have found operating companies using divide and rule tactics to win over communities, fracturing their internal governance structures, disregarding effective participation and free, prior, and informed consent, keeping them out of the loop of project management and transfer of know-how, and avoiding transparency on operating costs and revenues. Further along the carbon credit chain, the certifying standards, the auditors, and the ultimate buyers of these credits, all of them actors in this chain, including airlines, manufacturing companies, and gasoline distributors, are performing very poor or no due diligence procedures on the quality of projects or the credits that they are selling or buying. To give you a couple of examples, we found that 2 privately run projects in the Colombian Amazon have completely fractured the communities where they're located in, which is opposite as they should be doing. In one of them, communities had no idea that what the final price paid for their credits was, or even the identity of the final buyer, which ended up being a US-based airline. They also didn't know that at least 40% of the revenue went to a private company they had never met, or that another company that initially bought and then resold the credits is owned by the same people who certified the project. Likewise, an investigation by El País found that concessions covering millions of hectares in the DRC were reassigned to a Portuguese business group and converted to carbon credit projects without public oversight, even though they overlapped with protected areas and indigenous lands. And yet another investigation by Agência Pública in Brazil found that a RED project generated credits inside 2 federal conservation units without any money being transferred to the traditional communities living there. In a nutshell, the problems are widespread. The social and environmental safeguards designed at the 2010 COP, which are known as the Cancun safeguards, are not being respected and guaranteed. What can we do for this situation to change in order to ensure that local communities are offered fair deals by operating companies and that purchasing companies take responsibility for ensuring that the credits they buy to offset their carbon footprint? We need to elevate the standards and requirements of transparency in the entire carbon credit value chain. We need willingness from companies to publish which projects they're buying their credits from, and also, if possible, what due diligence they are doing. We need governments to establish access and establish efficient tools for communities to access information on projects and complaints mechanisms to identify and investigate possible irregularities. We need far more regulation, transparency, and oversight. The bottom line is this: for solutions to the climate crisis to really become solutions, we must ensure that they are both environmentally sound and socially equitable. Otherwise, they will just become problems. Thank you.